But to be proud of what we are doing, to be proud of slaughtering 20,000 children, how can a human being get out those words out of his mouth? This is not human. I'm really sorry. Only the Nazis spoke like this. I repeat, only the Nazis were proud of mass killing and genocides.
Ana Kasparian of the Young Turks joins Piers Morgan on Piers Morgan Uncensored, along with Shabbos Kestenbaum and Gideon Levy, to talk about the situation in Gaza. I've done 2 separate videos picking apart 2 different clips in this portion of the conversation. You can go watch the entire conversation on Piers Morgan Uncensored. I think the whole episode is great. This one focuses a little bit more on comments made by Gideon Levy, who himself is Israeli, and I think they're both really interesting. If you find this one interesting, check out the other one as well. Then I want to know what you think in the comments, but let's check it out.
It seems to me the problem with those like Shabbos trying to defend all this and saying how pleased they are with it all is that you've also got people like Smotrich in the Israeli government, the finance minister, one of the key members of that government, very openly talking now about a form of ethnic cleansing, where all the Palestinians, in his words, would be cleansed from Gaza. And this is clearly, it seems to me, becoming ever more obviously what the bigger plan may be here, which is that actually Israel's defense forces make it so uninhabitable, Gaza, by just blowing it all to pieces, that actually they say, well, you can't go back and live there to the Palestinians. You're going to have to all leave. And then they leave, and then Israel takes it over. I think that's exactly what people like Smotrich want, and that is not a form of self-defense to what happened on October the 7th. It's an ethnic cleansing of a population out of their homeland. What do you say to that?
Just before we throw to Gideon Levy to respond, I want to take an opportunity and respond myself and say, I think that summary by Piers Morgan is extremely succinct, and it does a great job of pulling into sharp focus the situation as it stands. I have a lot of critical things to say about Piers Morgan. I certainly can be very harsh towards him, depending on what he's saying and what the context is. In this particular regard, I would say that is an excellent summation of the situation in Gaza as it appears from the outside. And as he gets into in a little bit, we might see some other angles on it if Israel allowed foreign journalists into Gaza to see for themselves.
Unfortunately, the problem is not Smotrich. Unfortunately, the problem is Israeli society, which is either supporting or quite passive and apathetical. Smotrich is the face of Israel, I'm afraid to say. He says loudly and in a very vulgar way things that you can understand from many, many other Israelis, maybe the majority, who sits at home, who doesn't watch anything of what's going on in Gaza, who has no interest in what's going on in Gaza, and sits, and then comes someone like our friend in the team now, who is even proud in it. Can you believe that a Jew, a human being, an American, can be proud of starvation, of mass murder, of genocide? I mean, this stage, really, here I remain speechless. I can understand if the Israeli propaganda tries to explain, to cover up, to spread lies, to talk about self-defense, to talk about killing Hamas, to talk about the fact that it's about Israel's security. But to be proud of what we are doing, to be proud of slaughtering 20,000 children, how can a human being get out those words out of his mouth? This is not human. I'm really sorry. Only the Nazis spoke like this. I repeat, only the Nazis were proud of mass killing and genocides.
I try not to swear on this, but god damn. I mean, gauntlet thrown down. What? I mean, Gideon Levy, man.
Okay, well, Shabbos, you should respond to that.
Sure, I'm certainly not proud of mass starvation because there isn't any. I'm proud of the fact that
hang on. The IDF literally for 3 months starved the population in a blockade. There was no secret about that. Everybody saw it for what it was. So I'm afraid you're just not right about that. They only recently ended that blockade. So they are starving the population, which is, by the way, a war crime if you do that.
Whoops. Piers Morgan telling the truth. Look it up.
Piers, do you know how many meals the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation
spare me all this. It's just crap. It's like when I did a list, honestly. Shabbos, I did a list, Shabbos. I did a list. Hang on.
If you're trying to starve a population, why would you give them 85 million meals in the last month and a half?
I know. They're all overfed. I know.
Why is there more aid going into Gaza post-October 7th than pre-October 7th? I cannot name another war in modern warfare.
And you know the problem, Shabbos?
The besieged population is actually receiving aid from the enemy combatant. That is what I'm proud of.
It's amazing. Look, Shabbos, here's the thing.
Honestly, as harrowing as some of these pictures I just put up on screen are, there are a bunch more that I've looked at that I just don't have the heart to post here. They are so gut-wrenchingly upsetting, of children starving to death. So Shabbos Kestenbaum saying he's proud of that. And just to drill in on a political point he's making here, he can't think of another war in which one side is giving aid, some aid, to enemy combatants. Look at a map of Israel as defined when the state was recognized back in 1948. It looks like a leopard skin. There are lots of little spots all throughout Israel that are designated as Palestinian areas, right? So one of the complicated things about this situation, and that has always existed, is Israelis, to some degree or another, have thought of Israel as Israel's, and that the Palestinian areas are just areas where there are more Palestinians than Israelis. Whereas the international courts have said, well, there should be a two-state solution where the Palestinians are governed by their own state and Israel is governed by its own state. If you could draw a line down the middle of a territory, that would be easier to conceive, right? Okay, well, this side is the Czech Republic and this side is Slovakia. But that's not the way that the map exists in Israel. So to a certain degree, to say Israel is providing aid to the Palestinians, it's complicated because Palestine, as it were, is all of these little sort of disparate territories within the larger border of what is Israel. So you can't really have a freestanding Palestinian state geographically without the good faith cooperation of the Israeli state. And spoiler alert, that don't exist, particularly under the current administration, whether it's Netanyahu or Smotrich or all of the rest of the hard right, Zionists, who really think that Israel is Israel and everybody else, there's no Palestine. Everybody else are just Arabs living on Israeli land. And as Piers Morgan said in the beginning, the mission seems to be let them die, get them out of there, or whatever, but that's our land. We're going to recolonize it. And in the meantime, we're going to raze it to the ground. And if people stick around, that's fine. They can die. It's not our problem. Or if we let them leave, they can leave. And best of luck to them. Good riddance. And everything Shabbos Kestenbaum is saying here is sort of like, no, that's not what happens. We're bending over backwards to give them meals and make sure they're happy. But Hamas is doing everything they can to keep this conflict going. Dude, I don't know.
Unfortunately, you sound like the people who have started to defend the indefensible when it comes to what Israel's government is doing. And I'll tell you why. After all these attacks on Palestinians as they're queuing up for food, the IDF says basically the same thing. Either they were firing warning shots, or they felt they were being threatened by some people, or they've launched an inquiry or an investigation. And we never get the results of any of this. But in the meantime, 1,000 people who are desperately hungry and are queuing for food, even though you say they've got plenty of food, there are thousands stampeding for the small amounts of food that they can get their hands on, even though you say they're not hungry because you've overfed them, right? That all these people are just dropping dead. And it's got nothing to do with the fact the IDF are firing towards them, when everybody knows it does. And this is the problem when you defend the indefensible. It would have so much more credibility if the IDF just once said, you know what? We did. We shot at them. And like you said, you're very proud of everything they're doing. And if they were to proudly own this and explain why they need to shoot starving people who are stampeding for fragments of food, maybe we'd all take a lot more seriously the other claims they make. And the other point I'd make, Shabbos, is when you now just tell me I'm talking nonsense and they're all overfed and no one's getting killed and it's all on Hamas. To this day, the Israeli government refuses to let any international media into Gaza. And it's not because of the quaint notion that they're worried about the safety of journalists, because they've killed over 200 Palestinian journalists. They don't care about the health and safety of journalists, and it's not their business to decide about the safety requirements of journalists. It's the business of the organizations that employ them. But until Israel's government allows foreign media into Gaza to verify its endless, in my opinion, utterly disingenuous statements, then no one should believe a word they're now saying. Because why should we? Why should we? Why should we believe anything that the Israeli government is saying about any of this when they don't want the world's media to see it? After October the 7th, what was the first thing they did? They brought the world's media into the kibbutzes to see the full horror of what Hamas did, to verify the truth. But they won't apply that same thinking to verifying the truth in Gaza. And as a journalist, I know why they don't want to do that. They don't want people to see the truth. They're hiding the truth. That enables them to lie with impunity and to discount any responsibility for anything they're doing. And if I sound angry about this, it's because I'm bloody angry about it. Because it's so obvious that they don't want people to see the truth. And you can sit here and you can say till you're blue in the teeth, there's nothing going on that's wrong. There's nothing to see here. It's all on Hamas. No one's starving anyone. No one's shooting anyone in food aids. No one's doing anything wrong. This is the most moral army in the world. Well, okay, so let the journalists in and we can see for ourselves just how true that all is.
Well said, Piers Morgan. Again, I am not a huge fan of Piers Morgan. I can be very sharp with him and very critical of his opinions on other things. For example, his obsession with trans athletes. But in this case, I think that is extremely well said.
So after listening to that disquisition, let me say this. You're certainly entitled to your opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. I agree with you. The Israel Foreign Ministry and the Israel Defense Forces should let journalists like yourself, Piers, not only into Gaza, but also into the Kerem Shalom border crossing. So you can see with your own eyes, the way I have seen, the more than 800 humanitarian aid trucks that were going into Gaza on a daily basis. I never once said that
why are they stampeding for food? If they're so overfed, why are they stampeding for food?
Piers, I defend you constantly. You are not an anti-Semite, obviously, but I do understand why people have trepidation coming on your show, because they allow you to speak for 5 minutes, and the moment I try to make a point, you interrupt. So if you allow me just 2 minutes to make my point, and then you can tell me why my opinion is wrong.
Okay.
Just make your point. Stop crying about it.
No, that's a valid thing to say. It's fine. I don't want to keep interrupting people. That's fine. Go on.
I appreciate it. Let me say as follows. I agree with you. Journalists should be allowed into Gaza. I imagine, though, the Israeli position is, well, we can't allow journalists into Gaza because if the accusations from individuals like Piers Morgan or Ana Kasparian is that we are killing journalists indiscriminately, and then journalists were to end up being killed because Gaza is an active war zone, you can imagine what that would do on the PR front. Never mind the fact that British military rule does not allow journalists into active combat zones. So what you are saying is we should apply a double standard to Israel, that they need to allow journalists into an active war zone, but no other Western country needs to follow the same procedures. Even with that double standard, I would concede that point. I agree journalists should be allowed in. I never once said that people are being overfed. I never once said that what the IDF is doing inherently all the time is good. What I am saying is the IDF has taken measures that no other Western country has ever taken in modern warfare. The fact that they drop leaflets on buildings telling civilians to evacuate because there are known Hamas entities in those buildings. The fact that they have provided more aid into Gaza post-October 7th than pre-October 7th is something I'm very proud of. And if you believe that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is not doing enough,
the fact that they shoot at people as they're waiting in line for humanitarian aid. Dozens of people get shot and killed literally every single day. Every single day as they're waiting for food. No, I'm not going to let you filibuster, bitch. I'm not going to let you filibuster. I'm not going to let you filibuster. You guys are totally okay with IDF soldiers shooting and killing desperate people waiting for humanitarian aid. You're okay with that. I find it so unbelievably evil. unbelievably evil. It shocks my conscience and my soul that people as evil as this exist in this world. Okay? Watching these images, looking at these videos, seeing all these kids desperate, hungry, parentless, trapped in Gaza. And you're sitting here and you're defending it. I can't stand it. I can't listen to it. The filibustering is unbearable. It's unbearable.
And what
it's unbearable. I can't take it. How can you watch all those kids die?
Okay, let me bring Gideon back in here.
Will you call on Hamas right now to surrender and release the hostages? Do it. Do it right now. Say, I
called out Hamas. I called out Hamas from the very beginning. I've got no love for Hamas. It's a terrorist organization. What they did was wrong. I cried over the atrocities that they engaged in on October 7th. But you know what's so disgusting? You want to? Yes, I did. You should watch the Young Turks. That's where you'll see exactly what I had to say about Hamas after October 7th. I even trashed elements of the left who refused to criticize Hamas for what they did. Okay, so you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to that issue.
Okay, you made that clear.
But you can't on one hand,
all right.
You can't on one hand talk about the injustice of what Hamas did and then turn around and say it's okay if Israel does it times 1,000.
Okay, let me bring Gideon back in here. Gideon, what is the supposed goal here? Right? I believe Smotrich when he says he wants to cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. Okay. But how does any of this make Israel safer? How does any of this help Jews around the world who want to get on with their lives and not have to feel threatened when they walk out of their front door? How does any of this do anything but what the critics of it, including allies and friends of Israel, say is just fomenting the hatred, fomenting the ideology that Israel just wants to kill all the Arabs it can, which I don't believe is what they want to do at all. But I do believe that out of what happened October the 7th, there's been a collective meltdown of common sense from Israel's government. And they're now just on a never-ending rampage with no apparent goal, which makes any sense to anybody else.
Here we differ, Piers. I used to think like you until the recent weeks. Now I'm so deeply convinced that there is a goal, a very clear goal. And the goal is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. It is systematic, it is well planned. And listen to what I have to say. All the Holocaust in history started with moving populations and concentrating them in one concentration camp. Israel is doing it by the time we are talking now. Secondly, Israel is destroying the Gaza Strip systematically. It's not anymore a building here, a headquarters there, a school here, a shelter there. No, it's systematic destruction with huge companies who do it for a lot of money. Destruction of Gaza, which will make it unlivable. We want Gaza to become unlivable in order that the Palestinians will leave Gaza. Stop thinking that there is no goal. The goal is crystal clear now. I don't know if it will be achieved, but it is crystal clear, and it's not Smotrich. It's not only Smotrich. It's the army, it's the government, it's big parts of Israeli public opinion. To destroy Gaza, make it unlivable, to push them to the southern part of the Gaza Strip, to put them in concentration camps in which they will be longing to the days that they were starving in the Muasa and in other places, because life there will be much more of the hell. And then, according to the plan, and they said it, whoever will want to leave will be able to leave to other countries. So we are watching, by the time we are talking now, a horrible plan, a satanic plan of ethnic cleansing of Gaza. There is a goal, it's very clear, and the world has to do something immediately to stop it before it will be too late.
I mean, it's incredibly sobering to listen to Gideon Levy talk about this. He's an Israeli journalist. I mean, I think he's intimately familiar with the situation from the inside. It's astonishing to listen to someone like Shabbos Kestenbaum, who seems sincere. Like, he seems sincere in his beliefs, and I wonder, is it just propaganda? Is it just an act Or is it something where he's within his own media bubble and, he's just seeing part of the picture and is ignoring anything that's not on state television that's supporting that viewpoint? And is he just ignorant of the actual reality? Third option would be we're all being hoodwinked somehow, and this is all a giant global conspiracy trying to make Israel look bad and support Hamas. I think that's, I think that's absurd, but I'm just trying to come at this from some sort of a balanced perspective. It seems very one-sided to me. It seems very obvious. Let me know what you think in the comments.